Welcome to DroneCast, rethinking public safety one drone at a time, a podcast by DroneSense. We explore real-world applications of drones and emergency response, offering a close examination of evolving trends in drone technology and its impact on public safety.
Welcome back to DroneCast, where we're rethinking public safety and innovation one drone at a time. I'm Joe Kerns, and this is part 2 of our exciting conversation with Adam Bilmes of Inspired Flight. In this episode, we'll explore how Inspired Flight is tackling the challenges of domestic drone manufacturing, carving a niche in the U.S. market, and setting new standards for reliability and compliance. Plus, Adam shares some insider tips on emerging trends and the future of drone technology. Let's jump back in. So Adam, drones have been becoming smarter every day. What is it one technology breakthrough of emerging trend that excites you the most? And then, on the flip side, is there a trend in this industry that you think is a bit overhyped?
I'd say one of the trends I'm most excited for, just in terms of the advancements I've seen over the past, let's even say 12 months, but maybe even a little bit longer than that, are kind of the new advancements in connectivity options for drones. It's kind of a boring topic to talk about that folks like UAS manufacturers that think about a lot, and not so much maybe the folks using these. But one of the most challenging parts, especially if you're thinking about this through the vein of remaining domestically sourced, remaining NDA compliant, there has been just a true dearth of high quality radio connectivity options on the market. The majority of high quality radio command and control based systems use technology typically originating from a company like China. So it's been incredible to see over the past 12 months, a lot of the investments American radio companies made, whether it's a company like Qualcomm at the massive scale or younger companies like Silvus Radios or Doodle Labs that are starting to build absolutely incredibly powerful radio systems that allow manufacturers like us to achieve product parity with the radios that have been kind of more ubiquitously used over the past however many decades. And then also coupling that, not just radios, but the kind of the advancement of the ability to use LTE and 5G connectivity to operate drones. The ability to, especially thinking about public safety applications when you're flying in sometimes dense, urban, congested environments. The ability to use 5G as a method of redundancy, I think, is one that's not quite talked about as much as it should be in the industry. Because the ability to operate these things at scale, again, with that high sense of reliability is incredibly important. And it all boils down to connectivity.
Adam, I'm curious, if you had just a magic wand and you were able to solve one industry-wide problem instantaneously, what would it be? And now I say that question, but I think let's say it in 2 parts. Let's say it hardware, and then let's say it industry-wide.
Hardware, an easier answer comes to me for mine. And if I had an unlimited budget and I could wave a magic wand, and both for the industry as well as Inspired Flight, where could we focus? I would put a much more serious focus on potentially vertical integration or just partnerships on NDA compliant payloads. And specifically, let's talk about EOIR payloads, thermal and optical systems, certainly used by the majority of law enforcement, public safety type applications, but also utilities, right? Thermal and optical, a very common type of camera here used in the drone industry.
And then what would you say industry-wide?
I think industry-wide, if I could solve magic wand, it's really getting that regulatory environment to that same level of speed, if you will, as the technology. There's so much technology that's available for companies like Inspired Flight, for end users, but a lot of the technology to do these really novel, autonomous UAS type applications, technology is there, but we're not quite yet at the point where the regulatory environment allows for it. It's starting to change, right? We're starting to hear about the FAA putting out Part 108. Certainly, BVLOS waivers have started to be granted by the FAA with a lot more kind of regularity. So we're starting to see that turn. But I think as we get a more receptive kind of regulatory environment, recognizing both the public acceptance as well as the technological quality and reliability of the technology, and allowing us to move as fast as we can, as fast as the technology can move. If we can also couple that with letting the regulatory environment evolve to match that, this industry is set to go gangbusters.
Well said. And now it's got to be such an interesting place to be to balance these regulatory challenges and yet also stay creative and forward thinking. It's got to be hurdles there. So Adam, Inspired Flight's drones are known for reliability. Can you share a story or an example where reliability really made a difference for one of your customers?
I'd say 2 fairly recent stories kind of come to mind just over the past few months where just the trust in the system and reliability really was paramount. for me, at least maybe the more unique one first. For a few years now, for probably about 2.5 years, we've had a drone operating on 6 continents in the world. So it's been very exciting to tell folks that. But for me personally, I've been motivated to get one on the 7th, right? Antarctica. So this actually happened just a few weeks ago. One of our customers that does ILS calibration for the FAA and the U.S. Air Force around the world, they deployed with our systems down to Antarctica with the U.S. Air Force to do ILS calibration on the Air Force Base runways down there. And just hearing the stories about how the aircraft performed like a champ. We're talking incredibly cold temperatures, tough environments. If something were to go wrong with the aircraft, we're not going to be able to help them in any short span of time. They're going to have to get back on that C-130 to go get support. So that was an incredible story to hear about. It was nothing too exciting. The drone did what it was supposed to do. We didn't have to worry about it. We were allowed to focus on the data gathering applications that we were down there for. So that was really kind of an exciting one to hear. So personally, I can finally say, hey, we have drones operating in all 7 continents. But a better example of the reliability and the importance of these systems having quality that folks can rely on is, I don't know, probably 4 to 6 weeks ago. The times moved fast, maybe a little longer when we had the 2 recent hurricanes hit Florida. Florida is just a fantastic customer base for Inspired Flight, mainly because of the DMS rules and kind of the banning, let's just call it that, the ban of Chinese drone technology pretty much across the state of Florida for state and local as well as federal type customers. So Florida, great breeding ground for Inspired Flight. We have tons of systems kind of in that state. So it's incredible to hear from both public safety agencies as well as some of more of the environmental monitoring customers that we have in Florida, how they were using our systems in the immediate aftermath of those hurricanes for storm assessment, damage assessment, certainly emergency management, search and rescue, coast ecological change. It was incredible to hear how much the systems had been used in just those 2 weeks after those hurricanes hit, right? We're talking dozens and dozens of hours up in the air collecting data and serving incredibly important applications. So that was an incredible story to hear just in terms of, obviously, Inspired Flight has hundreds and hundreds of drones performing impactful applications every day. But when you can tie it so clearly to what was an incredible source of pain for so many people, just to think that we're being even the little bit of help in helping down there is just fulfilling, if that makes sense.
Well said. No, that's an exciting thing. And yeah, the state of Florida would definitely, I know personally, even spending some time with your systems down there in that state, it's a perfect pairing and fit for it. Now, Adam, let's talk about some more of this competitive landscape we have in front of us right now, and something that's always, something you're working with each and every day. With these international manufacturers dominating most of this market in a lot, what strategies does Inspired Flight employ to differentiate itself?
I think one of the main strategies that we're really employing and going after, and there was a shift in kind of how Inspired Flight built itself as a company. The first, I'd say 5-6 years, really, I'd say up until kind of 2022 timeframe, the focus was establishing an amazing base of reliable, performative aircraft. And that was our focus for the first 6 years. And that's where, as a company, as any UAS manufacturer, if any of them are listening and looking for some advice, thinking about starting one, focus on your core competency first, right? For us, that's building aircraft. And once we had established 2 maiden product lines in the medium and heavy lift space of the under 55-pound market, then we allowed ourselves to kind of take the focus from we're a company selling aircraft to let's provide the full solution to end users, right? How can we build not just an aircraft where a customer is going to end up with a science experiment on their hands when they go to integrate whatever capability they need to? How can we go provide a very, very narrow solution for folks in the GIS space doing photogrammetry, folks that are doing LiDAR applications, folks that are doing search and rescue applications? So really starting to think about bringing in an integration of the hardware for payloads and the user experience that we provide through that. And then as well as how do we start building out a software suite that really helps enable these type of customers and when I say these types of customers, I'm talking about folks that are thinking about deploying, call it 10 or more systems, right? Like a true fleet, not just kind of a onesie, Tuesday, we're testing the water with drones, but how can we best support these type of enterprise customers, these larger customers with managing their fleets, with understanding the maintenance risks of the aircraft, and really being able to treat a UAS program as like a traditional aviation program would be managed. And I think as the industry at large really starts to head in that direction, kind of getting out of, I don't like calling Inspired Flight a drone manufacturer because drones incredibly powerful tool, but it has if you ignore like DoD drones, it almost has a connotation of still a hobbyist, right? It's like, oh, your Best Buy drone, fly for fun. So we've had to train everybody in Inspired Flight, everybody in our production team. We need to look at ourselves and think about ourselves as an aircraft manufacturer, because that just implies such a bigger impetus for quality, for safety. Folks are at risk. Lives are at risk if something happens with a drone, just like an aircraft would. So I think it's an important thing for all companies in this space to think about, including the ones that are deploying it, is deploy these systems with true aviation practices, true CRM management, and allow public adoption to continue on the virtues of us treating this technology responsibly.
Well said. I like that inspired flight aircraft manufacturer. That it does inspire a whole different feeling there, and actually drive too, which is awesome. A lot of ambition with it. Many people hear domestic manufacturing and think higher costs. How does inspired flight handle the perception of cost versus value?
That's the only vein to look at it, is the cost to the value, right? Because let's not kid ourselves. Inspired flight systems are more expensive than your DJI, your Autel, your other non-domestic produced systems. I will say, I'll preface by saying, kind of going back to where you said the question about what can I wave a magic wand and solve on the hardware side, and I spoke about payloads. We're actually quite close on an aircraft basis. I'd say we're within spitting distance, 20-25% on the cost of kind of the aircraft system on its own. Where we really struggle and where you start to see, not just us, other UAS manufacturers domestically, where you start to see those real cost discrepancies is when you start to compare things like, let's say, an H20T EOIR camera from DJI to a EOIR sensor that uses a FLIR domestically produced thermal cooler, right? The cost differentiations in those systems are huge. And that's really what the end user sees, right? They're looking at a package. They're looking at a system. So that's where I see some of the kind of the struggles, and where we as a country need to continue investing is on the optics side, on the payload manufacturing side for drones, so that we can start to get closer to that price parity. But how do we kind of position ourselves to have that conversation with customers? It has everything to do with what we've already talked about in this conversation. Certainly quality, right? That's the preface. They know what you're getting when you buy an inspired flight platform. It's going to do the job you need it to do. It's going to stay in the air. It's going to last many thousands of hours, many years of service. But what more can we offer? That accessibility, that customer support, that training aspect, so that we can get folks serving these incredibly typically profitable and high ROI impactful applications as fast as possible. And if we can have those conversations with customers, show them that we're going to be there with them every step of the way should they need help, the value really becomes apparent.
Is there a misconception that people might have about competing as a domestic manufacturer in the global market?
Let me be a little bit more specific for your question. I'd say a misconception that people have about being a domestic drone manufacturer is that it's easy. This conversation has happened a lot less over the past few years, but kind of when Inspired Flight was starting, and still to this day, you would have folks that would come to us and be like, you charge this much for a drone? I can build my own for 25% of that. And our response is, yes, you can, and let us help you do that. Let us give you advice on components that we would recommend to buy off the shelf. There's such a huge difference, and I think people really don't make this connection because manufacturing in the US has been such a lost art. There's such a huge gulf between building 1, 2, 3, 4 called drone systems and building 1,000 of them with the exact same level of consistency and quality. So that, I think that's one of the biggest misconceptions people in the industry have, is what makes a company like Inspired Flight different from the really smart robotics engineer like Mark Stolmeyer, my co-founder when we started the business, who was doing this exact same thing of building drones in their garage. What's that difference, right? And that difference just really boils down to quality.
Now, it's the hypothetical question that I was coming up with when I was doing some research for this, and that's, if Inspired Flight could collaborate with any other company outside of the drone world, who would it be and why? I'm really hoping for like an answer like Nike or something like that.
I'll give you a, not as exciting as Nike, but company with name recognition. I would actually, if I could work with a company outside of the drone space in like a deep partnership, I would choose a company like Caterpillar or John Deere today. There's such an opportunity for just the deeper integration of heavy equipment in, let's say, John Deere and Caterpillar, construction and agriculture. Such an opportunity for like the teaming through autonomous activity of heavy equipment in drones to go perform autonomous tasks. I don't know, you kind of see me getting excited. I see there's so many, with the advent of AI, with how autonomous applications have been progressing, computer vision capabilities getting to new levels that have never been foreseen. I think there's just an incredible opportunity to better serve the true industrial tasks the world needs to solve.
All right. So looking ahead, what's next for Inspired Flight? Can you share any exciting projects or developments on the horizon?
I think what you'll see a lot of from Inspired Flight in 2025 are things surrounding autonomy. Like, don't be surprised when you see a drone in the box capability come out from Inspired Flight. New techniques for obstacle avoidance, collision avoidance, and the ability to autonomously navigate and perform tasks by itself. The ability to provide geospatially accurate data directly off the camera drone by enabling the system to leverage RTK and PPK techniques on the edge of the system, right on board the drone, and really shortening workflows for industrial applications. So that's really, I think, where our focus goes into next year. We're very solidified on our two product lines in the IF800 and the IF1200 systems for kind of our medium and heavy lift. You're not going to see a new aircraft come out of Inspired Flight in 2025, but what you will see is really incredible features, new software suites that just make our systems easier to use and less resource intensive in all intents and purposes, whether that's pilots flying it, the ability for pilots to kind of upskill themselves, and while the aircraft does its thing, focus on your more data capturing activities. So those are the type of, I think, things you'll see from Inspired Flight in 2025. It should be a big year for us.
Excellent. Inspired Flight has done so much to shape this UAS landscape. It's really exciting to see what you guys have coming next. You had mentioned AI. I'm curious, how do you envision AI, artificial intelligence, and machine learning? Will it shape the drone industry? What do you feel that Inspired Flight's role would be there?
AI is absolutely going to shape the drone industry. I think there's so many potential advantages for computer vision, leveraging AI, what's happening with companies like NVIDIA, like Intel, what's happening on the processing side, and the power of these new computing systems. The ability to integrate that on the drone and allow the drone to perform on the edge these type of applications and then pipe down just a much more valuable form of data, whatever that may be, to the ground, to the operator. There's such an opportunity for that to be a true driving force in the drone industry. Where Inspired Flight's place in it, I think, is as the platform to better enable it. Our systems are designed with open system architecture fully in mind, with backend APIs that allow software companies to really plug into our systems for apps to be developed on our drones. So I think that's really where our place is. Inspired Flight has no intention to be the open AI, right? We're not out there creating our own learning models and being the driving force.
You're an aircraft manufacturer.
Absolutely. We're an aircraft manufacturer that will make it easy for folks to integrate with and to use our platforms to go serve new applications. Like, I'm not surprised anymore when we have a customer come to us and say, hey, I want to go do this, right? Like a few years ago, I would be like, you want to do what on a drone? Like you would never think about it. But now it's just like, I've seen so many crazy applications our drones have been used for where it's incredible.
I have some closing questions for us. And I would say, looking at the drone industry as a whole, what excites you the most about its future and the possibilities it presents?
We're really at that stage of turning from like kind of the Wild West the drone industry has been. A lot of cowboy actors, a lot of folks, like enterprise companies that have taken one or two engineers, given them a few small dollars, stuck them in a corner and say, go explore this new thing about drones and let us know if we can gain efficiencies, if we can increase our bottom line, if we can reduce hazardous man hours, whatever that kind of that bottom line initiative was, go figure out if we can do that. And I think what we've really started to see over the past couple of years is we're really there. We're starting to get to the mass market. These pilot projects have really started to prove out the ROI that they can garner for a business, or the kind of the more life-saving type applications that they can do. And that's really what I'm excited for, is like the public adoption is really there. You still hear the story here or there about the guy in their backyard taking a shotgun to a drone, right? It's less so than it was 5 years ago. So I think what I'm really excited for is to see these type of systems be deployed more at scale and to truly go serve challenges that customers across the globe face.
Excellent. So Adam, before we wrap up, is there anything you're currently working on that you're really excited about and you'd like to share with the audience?
I guess one of the things that we're really excited to launch on January 1 at the start of this year is a new kind of software suite that we're calling Inspired Suite. made up of three components: the mission planning software that the pilot's using kind of in their hand controller, a mobile phone app used to help automate pre-flight checks, record notes on aircraft, and then a fleet manager portal with one of the features I'm really excited about, something that we're calling pilot authentication, where a fleet manager can look at all the systems in their fleet, assign specific pilots with their current Part 107 certificate numbers attached to it. And then that fleet manager can track and assign pins to those pilots, where those pilots need to basically punch in a pin to arm the aircraft. And then that fleet manager is able to record and almost grade pilot performance. Here, we're able to see what pilots are doing better with our systems. Are we starting to see more incidents of issues when a certain pilot is flying it? And then also just more operational risk or de-risking for these organizations, being more in control of where these systems are in the world and how they're being used. So kind of a lot of tools to better serve an enterprise client, as what I was just saying about getting these type of programs to more at scale. How can we make that easier for our customers? One of the things I've really learned in working with enterprise clients over the past couple of years is it's certainly an incredible investment for the drone hardware itself, right? The drone hardware, we're not talking about small dollars here, but the way a customer once put it to me, I was actually at a trade show talking to, it was a chief of police, and he had two of his air patrol officers behind him. We were talking about costs, and I guess I was hemming and hawing a little bit, right? Because I was like, oh, this is a high price compared to what they're used to. And he looks at me, stops the conversation, points at the drone on the table. He's like, that's not expensive. Points at his officers. Those are expensive. So how can we make it easier for organizations to prepare their back end? Right? Starting how you support a drone program is much more difficult and much more cost intensive than actually buying the drone hardware itself.
Well said. I love that about the interaction with the chief and what actually is really the expensive part, and that is the manned hours and the man itself, really. And that's where these incredible aircrafts come into place. And then the software suite sounds really exciting, and even a really exciting deeper integration with DroneSense at some time. Sounds awesome.
Absolutely. That was the implied in virtue of being on this call with you, yeah?
Such a pleasure working with you and the whole team with Inspired Flight. We absolutely love it. And at DroneSense and our entire customer base and so on, and feedback we receive, it's wonderful. So real excited about the future of integrations and something coming soon and currently present. Now, Adam, is there a good way that the listeners here today could connect with you and learn more about Inspired Flight, or generally just ask you a question? What's a good way to reach out to you?
I guess the easiest way to reach me is certainly on LinkedIn. You can find me in my email, adam@inspiredflight.com. I'm always excited to have conversations with folks in the industry, whether it's directly about Inspired Flight products or whether it's a broader conversation on how one can be successful in the space. So please hit me up, inspiredflight.com. We're easy to get to.
That's all for today's episode of DroneCast. A huge thank you to Adam Bilmes for sharing his expertise and vision for the future of drone technology. From groundbreaking innovations to tackling the industry challenges head-on, it's clear that Inspired Flight is paving the way for more efficient, reliable, U.S.-centered drone ecosystems. Don't forget to follow us on your favorite podcast platform and stay tuned for more incredible stories from leaders in technology and public safety. Until next time, keep flying high and thinking big. Take care.
DroneCast, Rethinking Public Safety One Drone at a Time, is brought to you by DroneSense. To find out more about DroneSense and how our comprehensive situational awareness platform can help you fly, share, and manage your drone program, please visit DroneSense.com. That's DroneSense.com. And then make sure to search for DroneCast in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, or anywhere else that podcasts are found. Please don't forget to click subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. On behalf of the team here at DroneSense, thanks for listening.